Hello everybody, it's been a while since I did a YouTube video, so I thought I'd give it a chance today. And I thought I would do one that's been brought to its conclusion. As we all know, Gypsy Rose has been released, rightfully so. She was punished enough in my opinion. But this is the tragic life of Gypsy Rose. First, we're going to talk about Dee Dee and everything, of course. Like I said, she was punished enough, but her story needs to be told because I'm sure there's millions and millions of other people in the world that suffer like this with Munchausen by proxy that have not been found yet. If you see something, say something, as they say. But I'm going to do my best with this video. Anyway. So, Dee Dee. Dee Dee Blanchard was born Claudine Petre in Bay, Louisiana, near the Gulf Coast in 1967, and grew up with her family in nearby Golden Meadow. She was one of 5 children of Claude Anthony Petre Sr. and Emma Louise Gasclair. Relatives recalled that she had a habit of stealing from her family, which they thought was a form of retaliation from when things didn't go her way. At one point early in her adult life, she became a nurse's aide. Just what we all need. Her family was suspicious that in 1987 she had killed her own mother by keeping food away from her. So she pretty much starved her mom. At 24, she became pregnant by Rod Blanchard. Keep in mind, she is 24. Rod is 17. They named the daughter Gypsy Rose because Dee Dee liked that name, Gypsy, and Rod was a fan of Guns N' Roses. Not long after Gypsy Rose's birth, in July 1991, the couple separated. Rod had realized he married Dee Dee for the wrong reasons, and he resisted Dee Dee's efforts to keep him. She took the little newborn Gypsy to live with her family. Gypsy as a child, her father, Rod, who tried to be involved in Gypsy's life, but by the time Gypsy was 3 months old, Dee Dee was convinced that little Gypsy had sleep apnea. And so it begins, and started taking her to the hospital, where she repeated overnight stays with a sleep monitor and other tests that never found any sign of sleep issues. Dee Dee then became convinced that Gypsy had a wide range of health issues that Dee Dee thought came from a made-up chromosomal disorder. Dee Dee even claimed Gypsy had muscular dystrophy and forced Gypsy to use a walker. When Gypsy was 7 or 8, she was riding on her grandma's motorcycle when they had a small accident, and she got a scraped knee. Dee Dee then said the doctors gave her a wheelchair she had to use. After this, Gypsy went many times with Dee Dee and Rod to Special Olympic events. In 2001, Dee Dee said Gypsy was 8, but actually 10. Gypsy was named the honorary queen of the crew of Mid-City, a child-oriented parade held during Mardi Gras in New Orleans. Gypsy stopped going to school after 2nd grade, maybe even earlier, they're thinking maybe around kindergarten. Dee Dee tried to homeschool her. Dee Dee said that was because her illnesses were so bad. Now they feel that this was to isolate Gypsy so she could abuse her more. Gypsy managed to learn how to read by herself using the Harry Potter novels. Gypsy's dad remarried. Dee Dee moved in with her father and stepmom. Dee Dee is accused of poisoning food when prepping it for her stepmom, using Roundup, causing her stepmom to have a chronic illness at that time. Sometime Dee Dee was arrested for several minor offenses, including writing bad checks. When her parents started to confront Dee Dee about how she treated Gypsy and the role in her stepmom getting sick, Dee Dee left with Gypsy for New Orleans, suburb Seidel. Her stepmom's health improved back to normal not long after she left. In Slidell, Dee Dee and Gypsy lived in public housing. Dee Dee used Gypsy's child support to pay bills along with public assistance Dee Dee had been given due to Gypsy's made-up health issues. Dee Dee made Gypsy see many specialists and mostly in Julian Medical Center and the Children's Hospital in New Orleans. Her newest issues being hearing and vision issues. Muscle biopsy found no sign of muscular dystrophy. Dee Dee tried to say poor Gypsy had, but Dee Dee was still able to convince the doctors to treat Gypsy's other made-up issues. She told the doctors Gypsy had seizures every 3 months. The doctors even gave Gypsy anti-seizure medication. Several surgeries needed were performed during this time. Dee Dee also regularly took Gypsy to the ER for small ailments. After Hurricane Katrina happened in August of 2005, Dee Dee and Gypsy left their ruined apartment for a shelter in Covington used for people with special needs. Dee Dee told people Gypsy's medical records, even her birth certificate, were destroyed in Katrina. A doctor there from Ozarks suggested they move to her native Missouri. The next month, they were even airlifted there. Their move to Missouri, first Dee Dee and Gypsy lived in a rented home in Aurora in southwestern Missouri. When there, Gypsy was honored by the Ole Foundation. They advocated for the rights of feeding tube recipients. She was May 2017 Child of the Year. In 2008, Habitat for Humanity built Dee Dee and Gypsy a small home with a wheelchair ramp and even a hot tub as part of a larger project on the north side of Springfield East. Dee Dee and Gypsy moved in. People felt bad for the story of a single mom with a severely disabled daughter that was made to leave due to Katrina's destruction. Got tons of local media attention, which made it so the community often pitched in to help Dee Dee, who now went by her name Claudine Blanchard, as well as Dee Dee. All the help Dee Dee got even included several charitable contributions. When in Louisiana, Dee Dee and Gypsy even had some stays at the Ronald McDonald House when on medical appointments. In Missouri, they got free flights to see the doctors at Children's Mercy Hospital in Kansas City. Even free trips to Walt Disney World. Backstage passes to Miranda Lambert concerts where they were photographed with the star by Make-A-Wish Foundation. Her dad, Rod, continued to pay child support at $1,200 a month, also sent Gypsy gifts and called her on the phone. Rod called Gypsy once on her 18th birthday and said Dee Dee told him not to tell Gypsy her real age because she thinks she is 14. Rod and his second wife to go to Springfield and visit, but each time Dee Dee changed the plans. Dee Dee told the neighbors that Gypsy's father was an abusive drug addict, also an alcoholic that couldn't come to terms with Gypsy's health issues, as well as never sent her money, even though he sent her child support every month. Those who haven't met Gypsy were claimed by her she was 5 foot, was charmed by her. She was 5 foot tall, toothless, and large glasses. She had a high-pitched, childlike voice that reinforced the illusion that she had all the health issues Dee Dee made up. Dee Dee also regularly shaved Gypsy's head to mimic the hairless looks of someone who being given chemotherapy, telling Gypsy that she did this because all the meds would cause her hair to fall out. Anyway, Gypsy wore wigs or hats to cover up the baldness. When they left home, Dee Dee often even took an oxygen and tank and feeding tube with her. Gypsy was fed the children's liquid nutrition supplement Pediasure well into her 20s. Dee Dee used physical abuse to control Gypsy. Dee Dee would always hold Gypsy's hand in front of people. If Gypsy talked out of the line saying she isn't really sick or didn't act like she was in lower mental status, Dee Dee would squeeze her hand very tightly. When alone, Dee Dee would strike her with her open hand or a coat hanger. More medical interventions then took place. Dee Dee had some of Gypsy's saliva glands treated with Botox and then just removed altogether to control supposed drooling. Later, Gypsy stated Dee Dee made her drool by using a topical anesthetic like Oragel to numb her gums before seeing a doctor. The lack of salivary glands with side effects of the anti-seizure meds caused Gypsy already few teeth to decay, which then, at some point, her front teeth were removed and replaced with a bridge. Tubes were implanted in her ears to control supposed constant ear infections. Finally, a doctor speaks of his suspicions in Springfield. Bernardo Flackerstein, a pediatric neurologist that saw Gypsy for her muscular dystrophy diagnosis, he ordered MRIs and blood tests. The tests found no abnormalities. Bernardo stated to Dee Dee, "I don't see any reason why she doesn't walk." After he saw on a follow-up Gypsy standing and supporting her own weight, Bernardo stated that Dee Dee is a bad historian. Bernardo then contacted the doctors that Gypsy had saw in New Orleans and found out that the muscle biopsy was negative, undermining Dee Dee's reported medical history. Which, remember, all of her medical history was destroyed in Katrina, supposedly. He also found out Gypsy's health records were not destroyed in floods. First doctor to suspect Munchausen syndrome by proxy, Dee Dee got the doctor's records and stopped taking Gypsy to him. Bernardo failed Gypsy by not following up and reporting Dee Dee to social services. Other doctors told Bernardo to treat them with a pair of golden gloves and doubted the authorities would believe him. Imagine what would have changed if he would have stopped her then. 2009, an anonymous caller told the cops Dee Dee was using different names and birthdays for her and Gypsy, and that Gypsy was not as sick as Dee Dee told others. I wonder if that was him. I wonder if he's the one that did the anonymous call. Cops that did the wellness check accepted Dee Dee's explanations that she used different names and dates to make it harder for her abusive ex-husband to find her. The cops didn't follow up with Rod and felt poor Gypsy was mentally disabled. The case was closed. Dee Dee at least once faked Gypsy's birth certificate to change Gypsy's birth year to 1995 to make people think she was still a teen. Gypsy said for 14 years she didn't know her real age. Dee Dee claimed the original was destroyed in the floods of Katrina. Dee Dee, although did keep a copy of the original birth certificate, Gypsy saw it during a hospital visit and got really confused and asked her mom about it, and Dee Dee told Gypsy it was a misprint. Starting in 2001, Gypsy attended science fiction and fantasy conventions, normally dressed up in her wheelchair. In a 2011 event, she made an escape attempt that Dee Dee ended up finding her in a hotel room with a man she met online. Dee Dee used her fake birth certificate with a fake age and threatened to tell the police. Dee Dee then smashed her computer with a hammer and threatened to do the same to Gypsy's fingers if she ran away again. Dee Dee kept Gypsy leashed and handcuffed to her own bed for 2 weeks. Dee Dee told Gypsy she filed paperwork with the cops claiming Gypsy was mentally incompetent, making Gypsy believe that even if she told someone she needed help, no one would believe her. Around 2012, Gypsy would wait for Dee Dee to go to sleep and use the internet. Gypsy made contact with a Nicholas Godjon, a man around the same age from Big Bend, Wisconsin, that she said she met on a Christian singles website. Nicholas had a criminal record for indecent exposure and a history of mental illness, dissociative identity disorder, or multiple personalities, as well as on the autism spectrum. Which, I mean, being autistic isn't that bad, but, he was a very troubled boy. 2014, Gypsy told her 23-year-old neighbor, L.A. Woodmansey, that didn't know they were around the same age and thought of her as a little sister. Gypsy told Alea that Nicholas and her were talking about eloping it and had chosen names for their future children. Gypsy, who had 5 different Facebook pages, were flirting with Nicholas, even going as far as having BDSM elements that Gypsy did for his satisfaction. Her and her mom actually had a shared Facebook page also. Alea tried to talk Gypsy out of it, and that she was too young and that Nicholas might be a sexual predator. Alea felt her plans were just a fantasy and dream, not real. Despite Dee Dee's efforts to stop Gypsy from the internet, even after she destroyed Gypsy's phone and laptop, Gypsy still kept talking to Nicholas, who saved printouts of her posts until 2014. In 2015, Gypsy planned and paid for Nicholas to meet them in Springfield. The plan was for him to just bump into her and Dee Dee at a movie theater while both in costume and strike up a relationship and later introduce him to Dee Dee. When they did meet in person after the first time, Nicholas said Gypsy led him to the bathroom where they had sex. They continued to talk online and then started talking about ways to kill Dee Dee. The day Gypsy had enough and saw no other way out, Nicholas came back to Springfield in June 2015 when Gypsy and Dee Dee were at a doctor's appointment. When they returned home, Dee Dee went to sleep. Nicholas went to Gypsy's home. Gypsy let him in and allegedly gave him duct tape, gloves, and a knife, with an understanding he was to kill Dee Dee. Gypsy hid in the bathroom and covered her ears so she couldn't hear her mom scream. Nicholas stabbed Dee Dee 17 times in her back as she slept. He had spoken of having sex with Dee Dee's dead body, but Gypsy told him not to. The two had sex in Gypsy's room and stole $4,000 that Dee Dee kept in the house, mostly of Rod's child support, which was Gypsy's anyways. They had fled to a motel outside of Springfield, where they stayed for a few days, planning their next move. At this time, they were witnessed on security cameras at several stores, both thinking they got away with it. They too mailed the murder weapon back to Nicholas's home in Wisconsin to avoid getting caught with it. They then took a bus to Wisconsin. Many witnesses that saw the couple heading to the Greyhound station noted that Gypsy had on a blonde wig and walked with no kind of help. People on Dee Dee's Facebook started to notice odd, disturbing Facebook posts on her page. It's going to get disturbing here because I'm going to read the Facebook post. "That bitch is dead" was posted by Gypsy to her mom and her Facebook account. And then I fucking slashed that fat pig and raped her sweet innocent daughter. Her scream was so fucking loud. Laugh out loud. She posted this so that her body would be found, because it had taken a couple of days for them to realize that her mom was dead. They were even So her friends were even worried when Dee Dee wasn't answering her phone. Friends and neighbors went to the house. They all knew that Dee Dee and Gypsy often went on medical trips with no warning, but they saw Dee Dee's handicapped car still in the driveway. So a trip not likely. A protective film on the windows made it hard to look inside with the low light of the home. When no one answered the door, they got worried and called 911. When the cops arrived, they had to wait for a search warrant before entering, but allowed a neighbor to climb through a window when he saw that the inside of the home was destroyed and that Gypsy's wheelchairs were still there. Once the warrant was issued, the cops entered and found Dee Dee's body. But my question is, why didn't the neighbor find her, and why was some of this not probable cause enough to enter without a warrant? That's my question. A GoFundMe was set up to pay for Dee Dee's funeral, as well as expenses they would need if or when they found Gypsy's body. The friends were preparing for the worst. If Gypsy was not killed, they believed she would be helpless without her wheelchairs, medications, and support equipment, such as oxygen tanks and feeding tube. LA was among the neighbors who came to Dee Dee's lawn to hold the chops what she had known about Gypsy and Nicholas, her secret boyfriend. She showed the officers all the printouts she had saved that had included Nicholas's name. With that info, police asked Facebook to trace the IP address the post to Dee Dee's account had been made. They were made in Wisconsin. The next day, the police in Waukesha County raided the Godjohn's Big Bend home. Nicholas and Gypsy surrendered and were taken into custody for murder and armed criminal action. When Springfield heard Gypsy was safe, they were relieved. Gypsy and Nicholas were soon extradited and held for $1 million bond. Jim Arnott, sheriff, when announcing the news in Greene County, stated, "Things are not always what they appear." The media, in turn, reported the truth of Dee Dee's and Gypsy's lives. Gypsy was never sick and always able to walk, and Dee Dee forced Gypsy to lie, or she would become physically abusive. Sheriff Jim Arnott told people not to donate money to the family until they learned of the extent of the fraud. Once everyone found out how Dee Dee treated Gypsy, people began to see Gypsy as a victim of child abuse, not just a cold-hearted murderer. In Missouri law, first-degree murder can carry the death penalty or life without parole. But Dan Peterson, county prosecutor, stated he would not seek it for Gypsy or Nicholas, stating it is extraordinary and unusual circumstances. When Gypsy's attorney got her medical records from Louisiana, he secured a plea bargain to second-degree murder for Gypsy. Gypsy was undernourished to the point during the year in county jail. Her lawyer informed BuzzFeed she gained 10 pounds when normally people lose weight. July 2015, she accepted a plea of 10 years in prison. Nicholas faced more charges because he initiated the murder and was the one who did the killing, but also more severely prosecuted due to different personal circumstances. Nicholas was not seen as a victim. He was not abused by Dee Dee. Gypsy's plea did not require her to testify in his trial. January 2017, his trial was postponed when prosecutors requested a second psych eval. Lawyers said his IQ is 82 and he is on the autism spectrum. At first, he waived his rights to a jury trial, but changed his mind in June. December 2017, they set the trial to November 2018. The lawyer tried to say, due to his autism, he just caved. He just loved Gypsy so much, he did what she asked him to do. The jurors saw the text some sexual that Gypsy and Nicholas sent each other just a week before the murder. After using different personas, even with the knife he would use to kill Dee Dee. He asked Gypsy for details about Dee Dee's room and sleeping habits. Gypsy testified on the third day of trial. She admitted she did suggest to him the killing of Dee Dee to end the abuse. She had also thought to get pregnant in hopes that once she was pregnant with the baby, Dee Dee would accept him. I have a feeling she would kill the baby, or her, and both. With the knife, Gypsy stole baby clothes from the Walmart, so she had things for the birth plans. Nicholas never told Gypsy how he felt on the baby plan. After 4 days, the jury had the option of finding Nicholas guilty of 1 or 3 murder charges: involuntary manslaughter, second-degree or first-degree murder, or not guilty of either. 2 hours later, they returned with guilty of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. February 2019, he got a sentence to life in prison. Death penalty was taken off the table, so this was the only other outcome. Nicholas asked Judge David Jones that carried a minimum of 3 years. He got 25 years on that charge, concurrently with the other charges. He was trying to get lenience. Nicholas asked Judge David to give him lenience. David Jones tried to get a new trial in motion by Dwayne Perry. Perry argued that the jury shouldn't have been allowed to hear that Nicholas had thought about raping Dee Dee on the night of the murder, and that the state psychologist should have been allowed to testify. Once the people who knew the family learned that Gypsy's illnesses were a lie, were in shock and saddened. Over 60 people attended a candlelight vigil over Dee Dee the night after she was killed. Her family in Louisiana that confronted Dee Dee about Gypsy's treatment didn't mourn Dee Dee's death. Her own father and stepmom, as well as nephew, stated Dee Dee deserved her fate, and that Gypsy was already punished enough. No one would pay for Dee Dee's funeral, and her father and stepmom literally flushed her ashes down the toilet. Rod Blanchard, a little more forgiving, had stated that I think Dee Dee's problem was, she started a web of lies and there was no escaping after. In prison, Gypsy stated in the 2020 interview, January 4th, 2018, I feel like I'm more free in prison than with living with my mom, because now I'm more allowed to just live like a normal woman. Gypsy did her time in Missouri College Correctional Center. She did not talk to media until after her plea. June 27, 2022, Gypsy married Ryan Scott Anderson. And then in September 29, 2023, just this year, the Missouri Department of Corrections confirmed that Gypsy had been granted parole and was released not long ago, December 28, 2023, after serving 85% of her sentence. I want to know what your thoughts and opinions are in the comments. Like and subscribe, of course. I think she had no way out. She was manipulated into thinking that nobody would believe her, and I think she was in her own hell that her mom had created for her. And that when you're in that situation, when you have no out and you're, innocent in your brain, you're like a child and what do? You're lost, confused. You have no clue what to do, And this was the only way she felt she could get out. Because there was no way she could ever flee her mom. And the only way to flee her mom would be to get rid of her mom. It's really sad. But like I said, there's probably dozens more people like this out there. If you see something, say something. Please save a life if you see something. There's always anonymous. People see things every day and just ignore them. It's really sad in this world. Anyway, everybody, I hope you guys having a great New Year's and had a great Christmas and Thanksgiving. See you on the next one.